When you think of hospitality, you probably think hotels. A nice bed and breakfast tucked away in the countryside, or maybe even the Ritz, London, an oasis of calm amidst the chaos of a big city. Perhaps you think of your favorite neighborhood restaurant or bar, somewhere you go often, somewhere where the waiter, waitress, or bartender knows you personally. You're greeted by name, you're greeted with a smile. You're asked how your day is going. You're even asked how Leo is doing. How does the hostess even remember Leo? Leo is your French bulldog. He's been having trouble breathing, so you just took him in to get surgery on his nostrils. The surgery went well, thanks for asking. The fact the hostess has expressed interest in your life leaves a positive impression on you. You're more likely to return because you're treated like family, not treated like a number or a nuisance. And that's the essence of hospitality. Hospitality can be powerful in the world of business. People are more likely to spend money with you if you deliver an exceptional guest experience. Hotels, restaurants, and bars generally know this. But what about transportation companies? Maybe a limo service, yeah, but everything else? Air, rail, bus, boat, forget about it. Airlines are particularly bad, and understandably so. Many of us are just flying on the cheapest ticket, hoping to get from point A to point B safely and on time. But there are some people who spend thousands of dollars on a single round-trip plane ticket. These are people booking premium cabins, and they expect more. They expect more than just a lie-flat seat, a blanket, an amenity kit, and a pair of noise-canceling headphones. They expect food, but not just any food. They expect food that looks appetizing and doesn't taste like a frozen dinner. When it comes to drinks, sometimes they want ice, sometimes they want a lemon or a lime, sometimes they want a straw. They expect the service to flow. They want attentive service, but they don't want the flight attendant constantly pacing the aisles. On overnight flights, they may not want to be woken for breakfast. If you're cabin crew, some of this may sound familiar, but you also know that some things are out of your control. If the flight is delayed, if the seat breaks, if the Wi-Fi isn't working, if catering didn't load enough beef for everyone and suddenly you get to the guy in 17A and he happens to be a super VIP elite and he wants beef, you're screwed. In other words, you can execute everything perfectly and still come up short in the passenger's mind. You get all the blame and none of the credit. Well, in this video, I want to give one particular set of crews some credit. That would be the purser and his team on British Airways Flight 298 from Chicago to London. But first, let's hit the 1-minute background on British Airways, or BA as we call them. BA is one of the oldest and most recognizable airline brands on Earth. Their roots trace back to a company called Aircraft Transport and Travel, or AT&T, not to be confused with the American Telephone and Telegraph Company. The British AT&T operated the world's first scheduled international flight in 1919, at a time when the British Empire was at its territorial peak. I mean, consider this. Britain controlled 13 million square miles of land and ruled roughly 1/4 of the world's population. Their various territories, dominions, protectorates, colonies, and mandates spanned from Canada to South Africa to India to Australia and New Zealand. Because of its wealth, power, and geographic reach, Britain quickly became known as a pioneer in air travel. Almost a dozen individual airlines were formed in the 1920s and 1930s, and they were ultimately merged by the government in 1939 to form British Overseas Airways Corporation, or BOAC. BOAC was primarily responsible for connecting Britain with her various territories around the world. It operated the so-called Empire routes to Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and Australia, and it was one of the first airlines to operate scheduled transatlantic flights in 1946. Over the years, BOAC flew some of the most iconic planes ever built: the Lockheed Super Connie, the de Havilland Comet, the Vickers VC-10, 747, and of course the Concorde. In 1974, BOAC merged with its short-haul counterpart, British European Airways, forming the entity we now know as British Airways. British Airways continued BOAC's track record of innovation, building up a modern fleet of Lockheed L-1011 TriStars, 747s, 757s, 767s, and 777s. They were the first airline to introduce a fully lie-flat bed in business class in 1999, and one of the earliest to launch a dedicated premium economy cabin in 2000. BA's Terminal 5 at London Heathrow, opened in 2008 at a cost of £4.3 billion, was one of the most advanced passenger terminals in the world. However, throughout the 2010s, its competition caught up, offering newer planes, better seats, better food, and a better ground experience. Passenger expectations for business class were higher, and BA's club world just wasn't good enough anymore. In 2019, BA finally took action, announcing a £6.5 billion 5-year transformation plan, promising new aircraft, new cabins, new catering, new lounges, and Wi-Fi connectivity. Passengers on British Airways' new A350 were the first to experience the new BA. The club suite was a huge step up from the yin-yang dormitory-style seats on all of its other long-haul aircraft. It wasn't Q-Suite nice, but it at least restored some dignity to the BA brand and ensured that Britain's flag carrier wouldn't be a laughingstock amongst premium flyers. Fast forward to today, and pretty much all of BA's long-haul fleet out of Heathrow is fitted with the new club suites, minus the A380s. Even the ancient 777s, some more than 25 years old at this point, were retrofitted. And let me tell you, when you step on board, they're borderline unrecognizable in a good way. So when I found an off-peak award ticket on one of these reinvigorated birds, it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So without further ado, let's head on over to Chicago O'Hare's Terminal 3 and get this journey started. Terminal 3 has been the home of American Airlines since 1962. It underwent renovations in the late 80s, but otherwise the basic configuration remains intact. British Airways used to operate out of Terminal 5 with most other international carriers, but moved over here in 2024. It has been a good move for BA in almost all regards. It's easier for connecting passengers because they don't have to take a train, at least on the departing end. And the lounge situation is a lot better for premium passengers. If you're flying Club World or First, you now get access to the American Airlines Flagship Lounge, which is a big improvement over the old BA Terraces Lounge in Terminal 5. But we'll get to that in a moment. Hey, how are you?
Sorry, I didn't see you.
No, you're good.
So where are we headed?
Just to London,
Okay,
terminating in Heathrow.
All right. And did you pack your own bag?
I did.
Wonderful. Is there any lithium batteries in there?
Nope.
E-cigarettes? Nope. Any computers, laptops?
Nope, those are all in this bag.
Okay, wonderful. Have you been to the lounge here in Chicago?
I don't think I have actually.
Okay, we share a lounge with American.
Okay.
It's American Airlines Flagship Lounge.
Okay.
And it's located right by gate K6.
Okay.
So here's your bag tag.
Okay.
So we're boarding you 620. We're at K19. You're in group 2. We're at TSA.
Excellent.
So you're going to go down all the way down to 7A.
Okay.
Come out, head over to K6.
Perfect.
And then K19 when you're done.
All right, much appreciated. Have a good one. Thank you. All right, bag drops all done. Super easy. Incredibly kind and just cheery agent. Got really good vibes from her. Lots of smiles, which is always a good sign. So yeah, it's off to a good start here at O'Hare, and it's about 4:20 p.m. About 2 hours until boarding at 6:20. So we'll go check out the Flagship Lounge here at O'Hare, see what they have to offer. So we proceeded to security checkpoint 7A as instructed, but not without taking a moment to appreciate the retro AA signage. And as is typical with TSA pre-check, it was quite fast and efficient. All right, cleared security, took no more than 5 minutes. Heading down to the K concourse, which I believe is where the lounge is. Probably post up there for a little bit, charge some devices, and then do some walking around before the flight. The Flagship Lounge is about a 7-minute walk from security. Our route took us down the iconic Hall of Flags, where I couldn't help but notice there weren't any international flags in sight. At one point in time, there were dozens of non-US flags representing all the foreign destinations served from Chicago. From Canada and Mexico, all the way to Japan, Taiwan, and even China. But now it appears a bit of a monocultural display, if you will. Hi, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
Great, thank you.
You're Mr. Berlin, and with you, Mr. Flagship, level 2.
Excellent. All right, thank you.
Around the corner of the elevator.
Appreciate it. Now, I know this video is about British Airways, but I have to give some credit to the AA staff as well. It's always nice to be addressed by name. Since there are 2 lounges here, but 1 check-in area, there has to be a way to police access into the Flagship Lounge. And that system is admittedly very low tech. Just a nice laminated black card labeled Flagship. As soon as you get to the entrance, you hand this card to the desk staff, and you're in. It's not the most modern or luxurious design, given it was opened in the 2017 timeframe, but it's plenty big, and I had no trouble finding a seat around 5 p.m. on a Tuesday. Food-wise, there are plenty of hot and cold options with multiple regions represented. America, Latin America, Asia, maybe an attempt at Europe with the pasta and various charcuterie. Of course, you had your meats as well as vegetarian options. Drink-wise, AA should also have you covered. There's a massive fridge with at least 10 different types of beer, and then a full self-serve open bar complete with instructions on how to craft your own Bloody Mary. Perhaps the best feature though, in my opinion, is the views. I'd much rather have the AA modern hospital design with great tarmac views and natural light, as opposed to a more luxe feel with no windows, such as the Chelsea Lounge at JFK. That's just me though. Pretty soon, I spotted our ride, which seemed to be taxiing over to Terminal 3 under its own power. This plane had arrived into Chicago about 2 hours earlier as BA 299, and as is the case with all non-pre-cleared international arrivals, it had to dock at Terminal 5 because that's the only US Customs and Immigration facility at O'Hare. So at some point, it has to be moved over to Terminal 3 for its next flight, but I sort of assumed it would just be easier to tow it. If anyone wants to enlighten us on the procedures at O'Hare in the comments, please do. At any rate, after a quick bite at my prime spot near the window, I vacated the premises to walk around for a bit before boarding. We're running a nice deal on cigs here, duty free. Buy 3, get 1 free. Alright, so I just checked the departure board. Looks like it's been delayed by like 15 minutes. It's supposed to depart at 7:10, now it's 7:25. Now, not a big deal obviously, but I'm just somewhat like surprised that British Airways doesn't have the ability to like notify me through the app or text me. You guys tell me, am I wrong to expect a notification from the airline when my flight is delayed, even if 15 minutes? In my experience, a 3-hour delay often starts as a 15-minute delay, but then again, a 15-minute delay can also easily be reversed prior to departure, or it just ends up not even mattering because you just make up time in the air. In our case, it was the former, and boarding actually ended up happening only a few minutes after the scheduled boarding time. All right, it is now about 6:25, which is 5 minutes past the originally scheduled boarding time. Looks like people are starting to line up at K-19. I'm gonna join the queue. What group are they in? Do you know what group?
0.
0, okay. Boarding started with Group 0, which I guess is BA's designation for the pre-boarders. Families with small children, people in wheelchairs, what have you. Then they continued with Group 1, which was first class, and then finally us lowly club world peasants in Group 2. Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
Good.
Excited to fly today? Today's actually a good day.
All right, good to hear. All right, thank you. Have a good one. Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Great, thank you.
You want to go cross galley, take a left.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I had managed to snag seat 7 Kilo today, a window seat in the forward Club World cabin. Why is this notable, you ask? Well, first off, British Airways actually charges you if you want to select a seat prior to check-in, even in business class. I was quoted £110 for the privilege, to which I said, absolutely not. However, I had just sort of assumed that others flying this route on a cash ticket might just pay the fee. After all, what's another £110 when you're spending £3,000 for the ticket itself? This 777-200 is more than 25 years old, but with the recent refurb, you wouldn't know it. The cabin felt quite swanky indeed. The darker finishes on the seats look a heck of a lot better than the old ones, which, if you recall, had white shells. Instead of 8 seats across, we now have just 4 seats across. The Club Suite, as they call it, is just a slightly customized version of the Collins Super Diamond seat with a door. I like what they did with it though. It feels more like sitting in a luxury vehicle than in an airplane. The only potential design flaw, which you can clearly see here, is that the seat shells are awkwardly short. So if you're a moderately tall individual, probably over 5'8" or 5'9", your privacy will be limited while sitting up, even when the door is closed. As I was settling in, the crew came around with pre-departure drinks.
Hi, Dad. Can I get
Champagne, please. Thank you very much. For anyone who cares, the champagne they serve is Nicolas Foyat, supposedly France's best-selling champagne. Retails for about 40 to 50 bucks a bottle. Thanks so much. So next up was the food and drink menu, and I was given about 5 minutes to look it over before the next lovely crew member approached to take my drink order.
Welcome on board, Mr. Berlin.
Hello.
Can I take your order for the drink, please?
Let's do club soda, please.
Club soda, certainly. We'll have a sparkling water.
That works.
Certainly.
All right, appreciate it. What was your name?
Yeah, and my colleague Aidan will be working at this session.
Excellent.
Today.
All right, good to meet you.
He's very experienced in flight service management.
Oh, I'm sure you guys will both be great, so thank you.
Please enjoy the flight.
Now, one small thing that some might overlook is the cabin crew etiquette while taking orders from passengers. You may have noticed that my drink order was taken kneeling down. I'm not sure if this is specific protocol for certain BA crew members, but I think it's a nice touch when the crew is at or below eye level while interacting with passengers for more than a minute or two. Of course, this is highly dependent on 1, whether the crew member is physically able to squat down, and 2, whether it's a safe time in the flight to do so. But when appropriate, I think it does add to the sense of hospitality. At any rate, before long, the captain came on to introduce himself and tell us a little more about the flight.
Hello everyone, from the flight deck, I'm your captain, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you aboard this British Airways 777-200 series from flying you to London Heathrow. Within the flight deck, senior first officer, and we have a lovely crew of 12 looking after you tonight. I know they'll be doing their very best to ensure you have a comfortable and relaxing flight with us, but they are mainly here for your safety. Flight time tonight is 7 hours and 5 minutes, and forecast smooth and fairly standard routing out towards the northeast. I'll keep you updated with our progress, but I'm pleased to say we're now pretty much fully ready to go around about 10 minutes before our scheduled time.
We did indeed end up pushing back 2 minutes early, and our taxi was luckily a pretty short one by O'Hare standards, just 15 minutes over to runway 10 left. This is a pretty short overnight flight by long-haul standards, so I was curious to see how quickly the crew could serve us dinner without making it feel rushed, of course. While you wait, there are several ways to stay entertained, although I'd argue the best one on BA is any 007 content. Service started with a hot towel, and that was followed shortly thereafter with my sparkling water and a bag of snack mix. The drink is served in a very nice glass, but the snack mix comes in a plastic bag instead of a proper dish, which feels like a little bit of corner cutting for business class, but it did taste pretty good, and it was more innovative than your typical nut mix, featuring toasted chickpeas along with the typical staples of cashews and almonds. Now at this point my mic cut out, so unfortunately I don't have the audio from my interaction with our in-flight service manager, but this man was the real deal. I was on the fence between the sea bass and the duck for the main course, and he basically offered to let me try both, or at least switch to the other one if I didn't like my first choice. For the starter, I went with the tomato and mozzarella caprese salad, and then I also tried the Buena Vista North Coast Pinot Noir. The caprese was served on top of a bed of basil pesto, and it was seriously up there in terms of the best appetizers I've ever had on a plane. All the ingredients tasted incredibly fresh, and I gotta say, the idea of garnishing it with caramelized onions added a sweetness and a crunch that I didn't know I needed, but will actively be seeking out in the future. And up here, we have a little Mediterranean side salad and a piece of bread. The side salad was also great, but the bread was a little stale, and I'm not a huge bread guy anyways, so I only had a few nibbles of it. Next up was the duck, and I knew almost immediately that I had made the right choice. Not only was the boatload of meat, but the preparation was next level. It was tender and juicy, and the honey mustard jus sauce added both a sweetness and a slight kick. For dessert, I asked for both the mousse and the bowl of fruit, and both were delivered promptly. The mousse was an interesting white dark chocolate combo, and it satisfied the sweet tooth without putting me into a coma. The fruit was fresh, so no complaints there. After the meal service, we were somewhere over the Gulf of St. Lawrence with about 5 hours to go. I caught just a little bit more of You Only Live Twice, then headed over to the lab to brush my teeth. These BA amenity kits are small but well stocked, with a toothbrush, toothpaste, eye mask, socks, earplugs, lotion, lip balm, earplugs, and even something called a pulse point. I have no clue what that is, but it sure did smell good. On the way back to my seat, I stumbled across the snack setup, which BA calls the Club Kitchen. I think that label is probably a little generous. Although, to be fair, I think this offering is a little more elaborate on longer flights and/or newer aircraft. But for us, the selection was basically cookies, popcorn, crisps, chocolates, and nuts, as well as some wines and sodas. But nothing for me since the teeth had already been brushed. It was time to recline the seat and try to get some shut-eye. Within the bedding kit, you'll find a seat cover, which doesn't really serve much of a purpose besides providing a physical barrier between you and the seat, and a duvet. I was pleased to discover that the footwell was pretty roomy, and it also seemed well cleaned. The combination of foot space as well as privacy from the door made getting to sleep actually quite easy. Alright, we've arisen. The time is about 7:35, a local. An hour and 3 minutes to go. So at this point, just better to cut the losses on the sleep. I figure it's kind of disorienting to wake up like right as we're landing. Now, even though breakfast had already been served, the crew still offered it to me when I woke up. In fact, they borderline insisted, and when I told them I was still stuffed from last night, they made sure I was aware of the arrivals lounge at Heathrow, where there is a full breakfast buffet should I get hungry between now and when I leave the airport. An excellent perk for those of us who don't have a connecting flight and therefore can't access the typical airside lounges upon arrival, and I was definitely planning on checking it out. As we approached the coast of England, I decided to test out the Wi-Fi. If you're a member of BA's loyalty program, you get free messaging, and if you're flying first class, you get free browsing and streaming for the full flight. I kinda wanted to browse, and I wasn't flying first class, so I had to fork over £5 for the 1 hour package. For those wanting to connect for longer, they were offering 4 hours for £12 and the entire flight for £18. I always am a bit skeptical of airplane Wi-Fi schemes that claim they're streaming capable because typically they're not. And this one was sort of borderline. Plenty fast and reliable for emails, Flight Radar 24, and the Wall Street Journal, but a lot of buffering when I tried YouTube. Before long, we had already vacated our cruising altitude of 41,000 feet and began our descent into Heathrow. Luckily, there wasn't a ton of congestion this morning, so we only had to execute one quick 360-degree turn before entering a left downwind for runway 27 left. This approach to 27 left is pretty nice for those seated on the starboard side, such as myself, because if the skies are clear, you basically get a free aerial tour of central London. The skies were a little gray this morning, so the view wasn't as stunning as it usually is, but I'll still take this approach any day of the week. Another added perk of landing on the 27s is that it allows very easy access to BA's Terminal 5. We basically vacate the runway and it's a straight shot to the terminal, no backtracking required.
A very welcome to London Heathrow Terminal 5, the home of British Airways. The local time here is 52 minutes past 8 in the morning. Please remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened until the fasten belt signs have been switched off. On behalf of all of us on board at British Airways, I'd like to thank you for choosing to fly with us today, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you, and a very good morning to you all.
So what's the verdict on BA? Well, first off, let's get some context. This company is in the middle of a multi-year £7 billion transformation. They've always had good service, but half of their long-haul fleet is over 20 years old. Their customer-facing technology, primarily the app and the website, are complete trash. Many airlines can get away with this, but not BA. London is home to some of the world's richest and most discerning travelers. BA knows if they want to be respected as a truly premium airline, they have to deliver more than just a lounge and a lie-flat seat. They have to deliver a personalized experience, and I think my flight today was proof they are capable of doing that. The in-flight service manager is one of the best I've ever had, and he set an example for the crew around him. Yes, he did see me filming, so I'm sure that encouraged him to be on his best behavior. But I also saw him interact with dozens of other passengers, and each interaction seemed just as kind and genuine. Now, do keep in mind that British Airways tends to charge very premium prices, even for its economy tickets. During peak season, they're often charging over $1,000 for even the most basic fares. The premium cabins are even more insane, often over $5,000 for business class. Now, was my flight today worth $2,500? Probably not, and I wouldn't recommend it at that price. However, if you find a better cash deal, or if you can snag an off-peak award ticket like I did for 80,000 miles plus $375, I think it's absolutely worth it. Not perfect by any means, but a very respectable long-haul premium offer, and definitely better than I would have gotten with American or United on the same route. Have any of you guys flown BA's Club Suite? If so, what do you think of it? Let me know in the comments. Thanks again for joining me today, and I wish you the safest and happiest of travels wherever your journeys may take you. So long.